Yellow Brick War, Chapter 6. I took a long hot shower in my mom's new bathroom. She'd even bought a bottle of the strawberry body wash I liked, although now the glitter suspended in the thick pink liquid, so reminiscent of Glinda, made me want to puke. I'd had enough of glitter for the next few lifetimes. I shampooed my hair twice. Maybe the real thing was more efficient than magic. I wondered how witches and princesses dealt with scalp buildup in Oz, and collapsed into near hysterical giggles on the bathtub floor while the hot water turned slowly cold. Okay, maybe I wasn't handling this return to Kansas thing with as much badass attitude as I thought. I'd have to look for a post-travel to a fictional kingdom PTSD support group. But the fact that I might be this close to falling apart was just one of the many things I couldn't tell my mom about when I'd been up what I'd been up to in the month of Kansas time I'd been gone. Mom, I really need therapy. Between literally turning into a monster and killing a bunch of people in a magical world you only think is made up, I'm not feeling too great. Yeah, right. Come on, Amy, I told myself, picking myself off the floor of the tub. Get it together. If I lost it in front of my mom, there was no telling what she might do, or where she might send me. I couldn't talk about anything that had happened to me, and I couldn't let what I had been through show. I had to keep being a warrior. This is what I practiced for. This is what I trained for, and this was no time to forget that. As I brushed out my long hair, no invisible magic stylist in Kansas, sadly, I saw myself as my mom must have seen me, standing in her threshold. There were dark circles under my eyes, with no amount of sleep was going to erase any time soon. I looked about 10 years older than I had before the tornado had plucked me out of Dusty Acres. Mostly I looked sad. Without magic being without magic to hide behind, I was going to have to do my best with concealer. I spent a long time doing my makeup. I'd never cared about it before, but my mom loved girly stuff, and I knew she knew I was doing it for her. I remembered suddenly the way Nox had looked at me when it felt like a million years ago, when Glamora had taught me how to glam out with magic and feel a quick, sharp pang. I tugged the brush through my hair with one last savage yank, pulled on the dirty clothes I'd been wearing, and opened the bathroom door. My mom's smile was so bright and so genuine that I was glad I'd gone to the trouble of borrowing her mascara and lipstick. Of course, there was no mall in Flat Hill. There wasn't even a place to buy clothes, unless you counted the overalls they sold in the feed store. There was a bus, though, that ran once an hour to the biggest nearby town, where you could stock up on slightly outdated ensembles of one of those giant box stores that also sold kitchenware, hunting rifles, and kids' toys. The bus ride passed quickly, though, and soon we were walking in the front door. I let my mom pick out the clothes she wanted to buy me. I didn't care what I wore. As she flipped through a rack of pastel sweatshirts with rhinestone slogans like cute and flirt, I said casually, I guess I should start back to school tomorrow. She stopped short. School? She asked. I shrugged. I mean, it's not like I can get out of it forever. Honey, my mom said, you just got home. I think you can take a week or two to settle in. She paused. I don't know if you remember, she said delicately, but before you disappeared, before the tornado picked you up, you got suspended. We'll probably have to deal with that too. Suspended? I had no idea for a moment that she was talking about, and then it all came rushing back. Madison. The fight she'd picked with me the day the tornado hit. Now she pretended it was all my fault and told the assistant principal, Mr. Scratchin, that I assaulted her. After battling Dorothy, Madison Pendleton seemed like a pretty pathetic enemy. It was hard to believe I'd once lived in terror of her. Poor Salvation Amy had gone to ninja camp. Now that I thought about it, I was kind of looking forward to seeing Madison again. Right, I said. I forgot about that. I can go talk to Mr. Scranton tomorrow before I go to work, my mom offered. I'm sure we can figure something out if you're sure you're well enough to go back. I know you missed a lot of school, but I'll ask if you can do some makeup work you were absent for and still graduate on time. Graduate? Right, that too was something from a life that seemed so far away I could barely even think about it. It was in every way that really mattered. I had already graduated. Sure, thanks, I said. My mom gave me a meaningful look, but she turned back to the racks of clothes. She ended up buying me a couple of t-shirts and sweatshirts, and one pair of jeans. She didn't say out loud, but I knew that was all she could afford. And she couldn't really afford even that. She didn't say anything about money later that night either, when we ordered an extra large pizza with extra pepperoni from the chain store a couple of blocks over. What constituted fine dining at Flat Hill. My mom flipped through the channels on the beat-up old TV she told me that she'd gotten from the Salvation Army. So maybe it was true. Maybe I was going to be Salvation Amy. So what? I didn't care. I didn't care about anything here anymore except finding those stupid shoes and going back to Oz. Somehow, without really thinking it, I decided already. I didn't belong in Kansas anymore. No matter how happy my mom was to see me, I couldn't just go back to being the same person I'd been before. No matter everything I'd seen and done, I couldn't go back to a place where no one would believe anything that had happened to me was real. I'd watched people I care about die. I'd risked my life. I'd used magic. Okay, fine. I'd fallen in love. And there was no one in Kansas I could share any of that with. It was as if Oz had made the decision for me. Or maybe I just didn't have much of a choice. "Oh, look," my mom said happily. "The Wizard of Oz is on. Remember how you used to love that movie?" I almost dropped my slice of pizza on the sad shag rug. There she was, in all her glory. Judy Garland singing her heart out as the Lion, the Tin Woodman, and the Scarecrow skipped along behind her. Everyone looked so happy and not scary at all. Dorothy was a young, innocent girl with a cute little dog. The Tin Man was an actor in silver makeup with a silly funnel on the top of his head. The Scarecrow was a dopey guy in burlap, and the Lion was just a man in a plush suit with a bow in his fake mane. I remember the real Lion, swallowing Star in one gulp, and shuddered. "It's all wrong," I muttered under my breath. "You're telling me," my mom said. "You know Judy Garland was already on pills when they were shooting this? The things they did to that poor girl. If you think I was a bad mother, you should have seen hers." That was a point I wasn't about to argue. "I'm kind of sick of this movie. Do you mind if we watch something else?" "Fine by me," my mom said. "It's not quite the same when you know the truth, is it?" I wish I could explain myself to her. My mom was fully being honest with me for the first time ever, and it sort of sucked that the shoe was on the other foot now. But if I told my mom the Cowardly Lion was real, and I knew because I'd killed him myself after he ate her beloved pet rat, she'd do a lot more than go talk to Assistant Principal Scranton tomorrow. She'd go straight to the psychiatrist instead, and I'd be going to the mental hospital, not back to high school. When it was time for bed, I hugged my mom goodnight. She smelled like she'd smelled when I was a kid, before the accident and the pills and the Newports, sweet and flowery, like springtime. She hugged me back. I looked over her shoulder into her room, taking it in without really thinking, and then something clicked. "Where's your bed?" I asked, releasing her. "Oh," she laughed, giving me a shrug. "I couldn't really afford to, so I'll just sleep on the couch. A couple more paychecks, and I should be able to get myself a bed, too." "Mom, come on, I can sleep on the couch. You take my bed." "I've been selfish for way too much of my life," she said, looking me straight in the eye. "I can handle a few weeks on the couch." Guilt welled up in my heart like blood from a paper cut. My mom had transformed her life in the hopes I was coming back, and all I could think about was how I was going to leave her again. How would it do to her when I disappeared again? "You can't think about that, and you can't get used to this," I told myself. "You're only here to get the shoes." It was easier for everyone if my mom and I didn't get too close. If I closed myself off, the way I'd learned to do in Oz, caring too much only meant you were that much easier to hurt. And if I was going to leave Kansas for good, I couldn't let my armor crack for a second. "Suit yourself," I said, making my voice hard and cold, and I closed my bedroom door to the look of hurt on her face. But all I could think about as I tossed and turned in the unfamiliar narrow bed was the tears welling up in her eyes as I shut her out. Knox, my mom, who was going to be the next on the list of people I had hurt in order to survive.